Journeys Ahead, The Holiday Frost, written and narrated by T.S. ProArt. It was the date of December 24th, 2027, just a few weeks after Void's and Jaida's second wedding anniversary, and now, Christmas Eve morning. Snow had begun to gently descend upon Aurora as most people that resided there were finally home for the holidays. Within its smaller, more secluded side of the city, atop the hill that overlooked most, sat Nock's workshop, which had been closed for the following week. Red and green holiday lights buzzed up and down its framework, while inflatables of both St. John and his capybaras gently blew in the wind. It was Jaida and Nock's reality version of Santa and his reindeer that, for the lack of a better word, was off-putting. Message was all the same as old St. Nick, but just in a more odd sense. Only the Void, however, for everyone else in this reality just saw it as normal. Inside the workshop's homestead, in its living room section upstairs, burned a fireplace. Alongside it, cookies were being baked, hot chocolate steamed atop the counter, and Christmas movies blared upon the TV. Yet, minus all the cozy comfort, there was a little ruckus. Nothing bad, but tedious all the while, for both Void and Jaida were finishing off the Christmas tree. Okay, that looks great, dear, Jaida cheerfully exclaimed as she stood a few feet back from the tree, watching as Void retracted his mechanical arms from its top after neatly crowning a glowing star above. Honey, I just gotta ask, why always wait to put the tree up the day before Christmas? Void inquired before taking a breath and standing beside his wife, both of them now admiring their work. Lights buzzed, ornaments hung, all the while the tree glinted beautifully off the room with a set of red pine leaves. It makes it feel more special. Plus, it just beats having to water it every single day. Jaida returned as she leaned herself against the spark in a giddy, festive mood. Jaida's hair was flustered and orange-pink in that moment, while she also wore a warm, scruffy green and red sweater pattern, being topped with pajama pants and mismatched socks. Void, however, wore his typical blues and grays, but was now wearing an added long pants, socks, and ignited his cosmic electricity to keep his biomechanical servos from freezing up. I suppose you have a point. Is Nock still staying over at Kott's for the time being? The spark questioned as both him and Jaida gently sat upon the living room couch, where Pofnu, who was now fully grown, had been sleeping on her back beside. Yeah, they'll be back tomorrow afternoon, alongside Sarv and Tucker, which means we got the whole place to ourselves. Jaida expressed with a smirk as she gently snuggled up on the spark. Softly chuckling, Void reached his arm around and embraced the musician, letting her fiery warmth engulf him fully. Well, that's a first. I should really get to work on that cabin idea. Then we could have free time all the time. Void brought up, making Jaida's eyes perk with joy. Ha! Yeah, sure. You said that on our honeymoon, and then our first anniversary, and then... Before Jaida could finish, Void cut her off with a quick, I know, I've been procrastinating. Sorry. With a shrug, Jaida leaned forward and gave the spark a small kiss on his cheek before sitting upright on her knees. Don't be. Focus on the now instead of the whens. Like, I wonder what kind of gifts you got. I know you'll be excited with mine. Jaida tested with a teasing smile. Sitting up as well, Void shrugged before stretching his arms, still adjusting to the morning decoration stride. Well, I can safely say that I've got everything you could have possibly wanted, so there's that. The spark said with a smiling roll in his eyes. Oh, really? Could one of those gifts be that oh-so-pretty amethyst bracelet I've been so eager to wear? Jaida expressed with a blushing face as both of her hands arose to her cheeks. As those words left the musician's mouth, Void's heart sank a little from it. Amethyst bracelet? The spark asked, raising a worried eyebrow. You know, the very pretty one we always pass at the jewelry store. You can tell me you got it. It won't ruin the surprise. Jaida sighed again with her giddy expression and whisper that had been doused by hot chocolate flowing through her system. Quickly expressing a fake smile, Void shrugged his shoulders with a "you'll have to wait" type gesture, while in the back of his head, he had been screaming at himself. The Spark had gotten everything that Jida wanted, but he knew he had forgotten something. For a good few months, Jida and Void would pass by a jewelry store called Fofit's Fancies when they went out on weekends. As they went by, they would always see this beautiful wristband that had been made out of amethyst crystals. To say Jida had been obsessed with it would have been an understatement. Guess you have to wait till tomorrow morning, dear. Void expressed through an awkward smile that Jida found to be real all the same. Oh, secretive as per standard, Mr. Novison. Jida replied with a small giggle under her breath while dragging a finger across the Spark's shoulder. Oh shoot, I just remembered. Void suddenly blurted as he stood up from the couch, startling both Jida and even Pofnu. I forgot to grab milk from the store yesterday. We can't make breakfast omelets for everyone without it. Void explained as his feet looked to awkwardly tap against the wooden floor. Oh, crap, seriously? Alright, here, I'll come with you. It's freezing out there. Jida replied as she too stood from the couch. No! I mean, I can get it. You stay here and keep yourself warm. I'll only be a few minutes. The Spark exclaimed as he gestured for Jida to sit back down. Are you sure? It's pretty cold out there. Your servos and gears could get frostbite. Jida asked back before Void tapped upon his arm and activated a new set of clothes for the weather. His blues reverted into that of gentle bare browns, while his grays and lighter blue metals became a soft hazelnut shade of tan. This went for his pants as well as his boots. Top off the look, his hoodie and elbow joints sprouted with a fuzzy fur layering that would keep the Spark warm within the weather. I'll be okay. BRB. The Spark finished before quickly kissing Jida and opening a portal beneath his feet. As quick as he was there, he disappeared from view, leaving both Jida and Pofnu a bit confused to Void's sudden urgency. It was just milk, Jida asked within. Right? Bye. The musician said before she looked around the decorated room, then crossing her arms. Well, looks like it's just gonna be me and you, girl. Wanna watch how the Twitch robbed Christmas? Jida asked as the large blue and pink glowing kitsune instantly wagged her tails in response. Exiting through the portal and entering into a snow-filled alleyway, Void quickly pulled his hoodie up and over his head before turning around the corner, emerging into the frosty city. The sun above had been shadowed over by rows and stacks of dim clouds that almost made things feel even more frigid. Snow bathed the Spark's face as it dropped down in gentle droves, while an ever-present chill tickled at his servos and skin. Gotta love the winter. Void saw within as he quickly approached and found himself standing before the jewelry store. Thankfully, they were still open as a gentle yellow light shimmered from the inside. Not wanting to waste any more time outside, the Spark quickly approached the door and entered forth. The jewelry store was a bit different to what one would think. Indeed, it had its fair share of diamonds, emeralds, rings, beads, you name it. But it also had some strange oddities within. Bookshelves lined the walls, mystical rocks, trinkets, and even a skull that could have been real sat atop a shelf above the checkout stand. Beside it, there was an interesting blue crystal or lapis vase that sat within a glass container, looking rather old in a sense. With that notion in Void's head, he came to realize that the place seemed to have a spiritual aura to it, one that was both inviting yet mysterious all the while. However, the mood was ruined by the holiday hit called Oh God No that played from the speakers above, leaving Void still confused with this reality's version of Christmas. Well, 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 what brings you to my shop this Christmas Eve morning? A voice said from the counter that Void quickly turned his sights toward. It was another thorn like Sarv, but this one was smaller, skinnier, wore a style akin to a fortune teller, and had both blue and purple feathers. Void could only assume this to be Fofit. Hi. I'm here to make a purchase. For that, specifically. Void greeted before pointing towards the amethyst bracelet on display. How much are you selling it for? The spark then inquired as Fofit leaned over the countertop and eyed the bracelet down. 1K. She expressed, making Void's stomach sink a little. 1,000? He asked, feeling his shoulders slump, while at the same time, another person walked their way into the store and passed the conversation. Stuff ain't cheap, Snowball. Real amethyst there. Mined straight from the catacombs of the Hoopla Falls. Fofit expressed before giving a small and greedy smirk. Great. The spark mumbled as he made his way over and gently picked up the bracelet from its stand. Looking it over, he softly smiled to its glinting purple haze, but returned to frown a tad knowing the price. The things I do for love. But as long as she's happy, I'll be happy. Turning around, the spark made his way to the countertop and reached into his back pocket. Pulling out a wallet, he took out a debit card and swiped with slight hesitancy, proceeding to watch 1,000 pounds of cash disappear into the bracelet's purchase. This for you or for someone special? Fofit asked as she took out a small leather pouch from underneath her desk and neatly placed the item inside. My wife. We passed by the store a lot and she took a liking to its craft. Void simply replied before taking the small pouch and pocketing it. She's a lucky girl. Those crystals are rare, you know. I'm sure she'll be just delighted come Christmas morning. Fofit expressed while giving a happy expression, although Void wasn't sure if it was for him or the $1,000 in cash she had just received. I hope so. Thank you and Merry Christmas. The spark finished as he nodded to the thorn and began making his way towards the door. You as well. Merry Christmas. As Void took hold of the handle to leave, there suddenly came the sound of a loud click erupting from behind, being followed by a harsh set of words. Open the cash register! Now! Quickly turning around, Void set his sights upon the man who had entered earlier, now holding a gun at point blank towards Fofit, who gasped in sudden shock. The man was wearing a ski mask, a dark coat and jeans, while ending with crimson black boots. With a pistol extended forward towards the thorn, Fofit, with shaking hands, took a step back and glanced between the man and the spark. Open the damn register, lady! The man yelled again, causing Void's protective instinct to kick in. Hey! Lower the weapon! The spark barked while stepping away from the door and approaching the man. Whirling his head, the robber reached into his pocket and pulled out another gun, proceeding to aim it at the spark's head. Back off, freak! The man shouted before looking back to Fofit. Do as I say or it's gonna be a red Christmas for the both of you! The robber continued, making Void sigh with annoyance. 1, a bit much for robbing an innocent woman. And 2, I bleed blue. Before the robber had time to process what had been said, Void quickly shot his mechanical arm forward, punching the weapon that had been pointed at Fofit out of the man's hand. In reaction, she ducked down, and the man, gasping with a grunt, rolled around and shot a bullet at the spark. Reacting fast, Void summoned a quick Nova rune and deflected the shot. Bouncing off the aura of energy, the bullet quickly began to whiz and bounce off the room's trinkets and metals, leading to both Void and the man to duck down as well. For a short few moments, the bullet went back and forth across the room, clanking and sparking off items, until it suddenly made its final landfall by shattering to the glass case above the checkout stand. Turning their gazes up, everyone locked their sights upon the vase that had been on display. Now in visible light, Void could see that it looked to be made out of sharp dark blue metal textures, sapphire with diamonds welded into its framework. If anything, it looked more akin to an urn than a vase. However, as the glass shattered its confines, everyone watched as the items suddenly tipped over and fell crashing to the store floor below. No! Fofit cried as she tried to catch it. With a shattering slam, the urn-like vase exploded apart upon the floor, suddenly causing an instant gust of cold air to fill the shop. Like a wintry mist, a light shade of winter-white fog, or rather frozen air, coursed itself across the ground, causing everyone to stand on their feet and look down at the broken glass vase upon the floor. The lights above flickered, and the interior began to sway, all up till Fofet, with a now audibly terrified voice, muttered, "Oh, Beezes, what have you done?" Blinking in a confused state, Void looked to the robber, who had his eyes fixed upon the vase, but then quickly reset his sight back upon it as well, for something began to brew from its broken form. From the shattered vase, slowly arose what Void and everyone else quickly realized to be a small little twister that began to rapidly grow and grow in size, reaching the point where the entirety of the shop's items began to quickly get thrown around. Shielding his eyes, Void began to take a step back and wonder what had been happening. All the while, something menacing began to take shape from its small storm. As the lights flickered, added with the dim frosted glow from the windows, Void, Fofet, and the robber watched in utter shock as to what was now appearing before their eyes. Rising from the small twister emerged a set of antlers, or rather, what appeared to be a bunch of branches, transparent but frozen over in a ghastly exterior. Dark blue tethers or veins appeared to stretch and latch themselves around this crown of thorns, making it appear more like a tree in nature. From out the left and right, suddenly crystallized to life a pair of floating hands that were each donned with 5 clawed frozen fingers. Snow looked to sprinkle off their back ends as the last of this strange being forged itself into the light. Appearing before all, emerged a large, cloaked shape that had the appearance of a frozen tree. Roots dangled at its ends, acting like ending tails upon a specter, while the rest of its form shimmered with transparent, dark and light blue shades of ice, with ghastly forces of paranormal energy swirling within. At last, the darkness from behind its twisted cloak revealed 2 large glowing eyes that were accompanied by a pair of shark-toothed long teeth, finishing off the form of some kind of ice demon. "By Matira," Void softly cried as he took a sharp hop backwards, watching as the spirit rolled its shoulders from underneath its wooden cloak and clamped its teeth together in a gnashing form. Looking down at its hands, the frosty spirit clenched and reopened them with a cracking sound leaving its knuckles. Snow drizzled off its build, while the floor beneath it began to slowly but surely freeze.
A day becomes a night when winter comes again. Dark corners have no light when light is yellow vein.
The specter suddenly began, releasing its hoarse, frozen voice to all those who would hear.
Each feeling will be so dark when night is in its still, with thoughts deep spark in a nighttime true fulfill.
Slowly craning its gaze to the windows, a visible, frosty breath could be seen escaping its teeth, as its empty expression continued to glow and freeze its surroundings, causing Void to take a step back as the ice reached his feet.
A day becomes gray-yellow in moods of many a glow. Deep of gold says hello in winter's crystal snow.
The spirit continued as the Thorn and Robber began to ease their ways away from the giant force of winter.
And the light of stars are going into the deep of the unknown. The distant tides of glowing ways that are not shown.
Taking a long breath, the monster inhaled with a raspy and empty force of energy that made the room feel even colder to all. Even Void began to shiver beneath his coat to the presence before them.
A day becomes of cold, where once there was spring. Night exhaust themes unfold, and days howl and sing. For now winter is blowing a song for me. All Jack Frost to conspire and bring.
The beast finished as a freezing growl escaped from behind its teeth. From behind, there came the audible noise of the pistol being fired off. As it shot, the bullet went flying out and cracked against the spirit's body. Ice and snow suddenly flew off its form, causing the creature to whirl itself around with beaming white eyes. "Move!" Void tried shouting towards the man, but it was already too late. Within the blink of an eye, the spirit lunged forward and forced the man's mouth open with an audible crack. Before he could scream, the Ice Spectre opened its teeth and began to breathe a gust of bright blue energy into the man's throat, causing him to freeze like a popsicle within moments. Ice emerged from out of his skin and clothes as well, while a cold, frosty layering replaced his once heat-filled body. The attack had only happened within the span of 5 to 4 seconds, but the man was gone before he even realized what hit him. Then, like a snowman in the spring, he crumbled to chunks and melted into a watery puddle upon the ground, leaving both Void and Fofit horrified at the sudden brutality. Turning around, the ghost set its sights upon the exit, but rather than phasing through like a regular spirit, it went to be on an extra level. Throwing its hands forward, the ghost summoned forth a barrage of sharp icicle shards to shoot out of the ground, shattering the glass and wall, allowing for it to escape with one sharp gust of wind. Within a flash, the branch-headed frost spirit blasted its way out and turned down the roadway, leaving a trail of damage and ice in its path. The street, cars, and many other small items outside were quickly frozen over, leaving Void thankful that most people were still inside. But he had to ask, "What in the blue blazes of hell was that thing?" The Spark inquired as Fofit shook her head. "Jack Frost!" she cried with a shaking posture. "What? Since when was Jack Frost an ice demon?" Void demanded to know with a stunned and shocked face on display. I accidentally conjured him a few winters ago. I practiced magic in the past and, well, he was one of the many mistakes I made." Fofit revealed, leaving Void's jaw to hang low. "I managed to capture him in that vase years ago, but damn it, he's gonna search for more people to freeze. It's how he feeds. Gets stronger." Fofit continued in a panicking breath as she began to shiver. "Please tell me you happen to have a way to stop him." Void then inquired as he peeked his head out the torn open wall, watching as the specter got further and further into the distance. Well, he's made out of ice, right? A lot of heat pressure should melt him," Fofit expressed while scratching her chin. "But that kind of power requires a large surge of fire, electricity, anything that's hot, really." Thinking for a quick moment, Void looked down to his hands and then felt his surges of cosmic electricity within. "I may know what to do." Before the Thorn could respond, the Spark turned on his heel and leapt out in the open. His feet slid across the frozen road, whilst he then looked up to Jack's wintry trail. "Where are you going?" Fofit asked as Void began to sprint and slide down the road. As the Spark's form disappeared into the blurry morning shade of the snowfall, Void tapped upon his wrist and brought forth the blue cloak that defined him as the Blue Bullet. As his battle mask came down and sealed tightly over his face, Void activated a set of newly designed wings, a mixture of both his old and not upgraded turbines. Then, with one kick off the ground, he was off. Rising high into the air with an ocean-colored spray of exhaust leaving his engines, Void threw his arms out at his sides and exploded forwards. Scanning with his visor, the Spark caught the sight of Jack flying and soaring his way across streetways and building sides. The world below his spectral form began to freeze to that of icy stone, along with cars, trees, doorsteps, and shop windows, all frozen from the pure essence that the spirit expelled from its ectoplasmic trail. It was then the Spark began to notice something else. The morning sky was growing to be a bit darker. The clouds slowly morphed into the black of night, while a full-on snowstorm slowly began to pick up into the blizzard. It was as though old Jack had begun to manipulate the weather, or rather, the weather was naturally reacting towards him. "Okay, Novasun, not your craziest skirmish, but probably your most unexpected one," Void told himself as he began to trail up upon the Spectre. Just gotta melt them and we'll be set in stone. Get back to Nox's place with some extra milk and have a merry— Whoa! With a sharp strand of light, a lethal lightning bolt struck towards the ground. As it made touchdown, it suddenly froze itself over, looking to be a large spire that broke off near the clouds above. Okay, yeah, I cannot waste time with this one. Void cried aloud as he blasted ahead with a sharp burst. Pulling his arms out from underneath the cloak, the spark brought forth a bright surge of navy blue electricity to his fist and made his move. Slamming and latching onto the Spectre, Void delivered a powerful energized blow upon the side of the beast's back, causing parts of his branches and outer layer ice to shatter and melt to the air. Howling with a primal form of agony, Jack whirled himself around and grabbed hold of the spark by his head. The touch from the spirit's icy fingers instantly made Void's skin feel numb and sting with pain. Even though a hood was over his head, it felt as though not to even be there. Knife-like fingernails began to press against Void's skin as Jack glared into him with his burning blizzardy eyes. Through the air, they twirled and spun, crashing through building walls, apartments, and the like, before returning back to the now dark, snowy, and icy life of Aurora City. Now bashing his mask off and digging his clawed fingers in the Void's mouth, Jack tried to pry it open and deliver the same lethal dose of ice to the spark, just like the man from the shop. Void, however, would not allow that to happen. Thinking fast and wincing with strain, Void ignited his horns and blew the spirit off his body in a bright haze of blue. Screaming like a banshee, Jack awkwardly spun himself back around and continued forth towards somewhere inside the city. A place where warmth had to be full and extravagant. Regaining himself mid-air, Void readjusted his wings and set his sights back down upon the gnashing, frozen monstrosity, watching as he made his way right for the city bridge. Oh no. Void gasped as he quickly summoned his mask back over his face. It was then he had a thought on where the spirit may be going. He could see it in the distance, glimmering off the buildings. Shades of reds, greens, blues, yellows, and pinks, glinting whites and teals, projections of snowflakes and St. John. It was the city Christmas tree, the gathering for all those who wished to be merry. The people, the heat from the lights. It would be like a buffet for the one who was supposedly the Jack Frost of this world, and he was looking to be making a straight beeline for it. No! No, no! Void wordly called as he and Jack began to evade in between metal pillars that held the bridge up high. Cars below began to honk and squeal their tires as Jack dove down and began to freeze what he could. Cars spun out, some flipped, and lights began to flicker all around. Stop! Void shouted as he summoned forth his electrical bladed hooks. With a spin and twirl, he shot them forward and latched them deep into the Spectre's back, sending waves of sharp electricity to burn into its black ice skin. As Jack began to scream again, he instantly twirled himself around like a crocodile performing its death roll. Before long, Void found himself being yanked down and smashed into the road. His body instantly went from both left and right, sliding on expelled ice, smashing in the sides of vehicles, all up until Jack broke free and spiraled back towards the air. Come on, Jack! You don't want to be on St. John's nasty list, right? Void taunted as he found his footing and propelled himself off a taxicab, igniting his wings and flying back into the air after the Frost Demon. To Void's slight but not entirely surprised shock, soared in what looked to be two news choppers from behind. They looked to be designed for the wintry weathers, large and bulky with thick warm metal. Channel 7 was pronounced in big bold words upon their sides, as spotlights shone down on both Void and Jack. Come on, guys! Seriously? Void cried out as he slid down a light tinter over his visor. It's really dangerous right now! You shouldn't be flying in these conditions! As if to add on the Void's statements, another strike of frost lightning zapped to the waters below, causing one of the choppers to slowly back off from the scene. What did I just say? Void snapped back with a slight form of irritation growing in his voice. From inside the hut of Void's mask, he was alerted to the indication that he was getting an incoming call. In big glowing words, it exclaimed, Jida Woods is wanting the call. Oh boy. The spark wordily said to himself as he quickly began to evade a new attack from Jack. Turning around, the Spectre threw his hands out at his sides, summoning forth rounds upon rounds of sharp icicle-like projectiles towards the spark. Gasping and moving fast, Void quickly spun from and evaded these deadly blows, as both him and Jack continued to fly around the bridge beams. Pick up! Nova's son asked into his mask with an uncertain tone, now connecting with his wife via a now shaky telephone line. Hello? Void greeted. Hey, honey. I was just calling to check in. I was watching the news to see what changed with the weather and stuff, and... Look, I just gotta be blunt. Why are you chasing a ghost across the Aurora Gate Bridge? Opening his mouth, Jack began to spray forth a gust of ice that froze pillars and created a strong wall of frozen water, all in an attempt to get the spark off his trail. I, ran into a bit of a scuffle at the store. Long story short, a frost demon or something got set free, and yeah. Typical Saturday, am I right? Void explained through a fake laugh as he activated his arm cannons and blasted open a hole through the ice wall, proceeding to spin through and regain himself to the chase. I see. Do you need any help? I can get over there if you need me to. Jada asked, now sounding a tad perplexed to the situation. No, I got this. It's all under control, honey. Just stay inside and keep yourself warm. This weather's really starting to get bad. Void returned as he and Jack crossed the bridge and entered into the city, now being in the viewing length of the community Christmas tree gathering. Alright. Just be careful, Blue. Love you. Jada said, sounding a bit uncertain with the situation. Love you too, Freckles. Void finished before feeling a rush of adrenaline course into his soul. Alright, Jackie boy. You've had your fun, but this little Christmas skirmish has gone on for long enough. Throwing his arms down at his sides, Void thrusted himself forward with a mighty blast of energy, essentially making him a glowing ball of power that reared back upon Jack for a third time. Throwing his right arm out to his side, the spark summoned forth a newly designed battle axe out from under his wrist, this one of a more firm build, but powered by his electricity over being a stable power. Swinging at a left side strike, Void descended down and lodged the weapon's crescent end deep into the side of Jack, sending them both sprawling and falling to the world below, all the way down to the crowded viewing spot of the building-sized Christmas tree celebration. As panic began to arise, Void slowly pressed his bulky hands into the snow-ridden ground and awkwardly pushed himself back up and onto his knees. The blurry forms of civilians wordly running away danced at the corner of his eyes, as everything slowly began to emerge back into light. The wind was heavy, the storm was at full capacity, leaving the only light source around to be the glimmering hues of the massive Christmas tree and the now faulty building lights in the distance.
You dare defy me on this cold winter's day? Ha! Silly soul. Do you wish to so pay?
The words of Jack came crisp and sharp from in front of the spark, sending a wave of frosted anxiety to engulf his chest. Setting his vision straight, Void could now make out the form of Jack slowly arising out of the snow. It was as though the frosty terrain was a deep form of water for the specter, with branches emerging and a face appearing as though to be a shark stalking its prey. Void stood to his feet and gripped his battle axe tightly, watching on as the illuminated form of Jack Frost levitated before the shining lights of the Christmas tree.
Look out, look out! Jack Frost is about. He's after our fingers and toes, calling and demanding, begging for souls.
The specter exclaimed with a crooked tilt in its head. The lights behind the tree then began to buzz and flick in a way that could have even startled old Saint Nick.
He'll climb a tree, so nimble is he. His silvery powder he'll shake. To windows he'll creep, and while we're asleep, such wonderful pictures he'll make.
Scowling behind the mask, Void charged his body up to the best of his ability, sending currents into his hands and to even his axe. His cloak began to glow and illuminate with sapphire as he prepared for what he had to do.
Across the grass he'll merrily pass, and change all its greenness to white. Then home he will go, and laugh, ho, ho, ho! What fun I had that night.
With an echoed screech, Jack threw his head back with a crack and bellowed out a shockwave of a cry. A cold gust of wind then erupted across the city square that sent both snow and ice to fly in all directions. Sliding across the snow upon his feet, the Spark struggled to keep his footing as Jack created what looked to be a self-made storm eye. Surrounding the two of them and the entirety of the now evacuated city square arose a violent charge of blowing wind and sleet, creating what could only be described as some kind of blocked-off arena just for the two of them. Old Jack then began to cackle in both excitement but with a tinge of rage as he eyed down his next form of prey, making Void realize that a frostbiting duel was about to commence. Blasting downwards with a trail of frost falling behind its roots, Jack opened his mouth at an unnaturally wide size. His teeth extended forward, and his eyes looked to squint and roll into the back of his head, now prepared to bite the Spark's own clean off. Within the nick of time, Void swung his axe and struck it upon Frost's face. Before any damage could be made, however, the Spectre clamped its teeth down upon the blade and quickly threw Void aside with a snapping head twirl. Although Jack was electrocuted in the process, he had enough strength and resistance to completely disarm the Spark from his blade. Landing with a pained grunt, Void rolled and skid across the numbing snow, before stopping himself in a firm and sliding stop before the Christmas tree. With a torn cloak and scuffed mask, the Spark craned his sight back up towards his adversary, who was now charging with branches at the ready. Rearing an arm back, Void changed his course of energy to go into his fist and threw a hard punch forward, decking Jack upon his hooded skull. Recoiling from the electrified attack, the Frost Demon prepared to claw and swipe at the Spark, but Void quickly delivered a numbing right hook to Jack's left-hand side. Sparks of ice and ectoplasmic snow exploded off Frost's wooden-cloaked body, looking to ever so slightly melt him in the process, but Void would need to do more if he were to dissipate the monster entirely. Tough for someone without any muscle! Void taunted as he quickly advanced upon Jack and took hold of his branches. But nothing beats the sensation of a warm touch! The Spark added as he sent a surge of electricity to his knee and smashed Jack's face down hard upon its rising metal form. With a shattering crack, more shards of ice flew up from the impact, even cracking a few of Jack's teeth amidst the blow. Snarling in a ferocious tone, Void suddenly felt the branches upon his hands move up and wrap around his arms, acting as smaller limbs to the beast's form. What the? The Spark cried before he was suddenly flipped up and over Jack's head and thrown violently backwards. Spiraling through the air, Void hit his back hard against a nearby oil tanker, denting the large canister that had been resting upon a parked semi-truck. Sliding back down to the ground, the Spark grunted and landed hard on his metallic rear, feeling a few of his mechanical interiors and organs break and click on the inside. Ow. He groaned while quickly patting his pocket, feeling that the bracelet was still snug inside. Levitating back into the air, Jack Frost bellowed another ear-shattering shriek, causing the tree lights to flicker and the ground to gust upwards in an almost sub-zero type of wind. Amidst the scream, Jack rose his hands and summoned forth shards of icicles to shoot up from the ground as well as from the air. Seriously? Void groaned as he scrambled to his feet and began to evade the freezing onslaught. Leaping with flips and dodges, Void went around in circles from the wintry phantom as it continued to make the ground a spike-ridden death trap. Gotta melt him fast, Void told himself aloud before summoning forth an electrified Nova Rune. As the Spark flipped out of the way once more, he threw the charge of energy towards Jack, striking him directly in between the eyes. Spinning out from the strike, Frost wailed and slobbered with ectoplasmic energy, giving Void his open opportunity to strike. Activating his wings, the Spark blasted back upwards and tackled the frozen beast. With both fists, he began to punch and smash in the monster's face, delivering blows upon blows of static charges into the crystallized build. But to Void's dismay, it wasn't doing much. If anything, he was only scratching Jack, and the Spectre knew this. Extending his teeth and wintry gums forward with a horrific manner, Jack bit down hard upon the spark's metallic arm, causing Void to shout and bleed in pain. His synthetic flesh both popped and tore as Frost began to try and freeze it off. As Void began to try and fight back, Jack suddenly began whirling around once more, spinning Void through the air before releasing him in a gasping cry. Sprawling through the sky once more, Void went crashing hard into the massive Christmas tree behind. Slamming into thick fern leaves and giant ornaments, the Spark found himself dazed and cold. His mask depleted from view as his energy began to fade at a rapid pace. He had used so much of his source up from the hits alone, and he wasn't sure if he would even have enough strength to fight on. Man, maybe I should have had Jai to help. Uh-oh. The Spark told himself as Jack slowly began to approach him from afar. With teeth gnashing and frozen drool seeping, the spirit looked to be both fed up and starving for its next soul to take. This in turn caused a cold sweat to pour down the Spark's brow. Come on, Jack. Where's that fun spirit legends talk about? Aren't you supposed to be, like, bringing joy and not death and chaos? The Spark inquired with a wince as he tried to think of a plan. Like a predator, Jack's breathing began to intensify as he neared ever closer to the Spark, looking to pounce at any given moment. It was when all seemed lost, however, when Void felt a surge of energy. Upon his hands and legs, he wasn't sure what it had been at first, until he suddenly realized he was wrapped up in the tree's Christmas lights, or rather, a large strand of electrical currents to his disposal. Reaching out, Jack gripped and pried the Spark's mouth open once more, and got ready to deliver its killing blow. Void, on the other hand, took hold upon the lights at both sides and quickly connected them to himself via a surge from his heart. Instantly, the currents that ran through the hundreds upon thousands of Christmas tree lights suddenly rerouted their direction towards their new fuse box. That box being Void, who was instantly overwhelmed with energy. Buzzes of both red and green colored electricity sparked and crawled across Void's body, giving him the source of power he needed and shocking Jack in his place. Spitting the Spectre's gnarled hands out of his mouth, Void glared upon the beast's angered eyes. It couldn't move or attack. Jack was stuck in place from the power surge, numb and melting from the outside. Alright, Jack. I'm gonna give you to the count of 10 to get your ugly, icy, no good keister out of my city before I pump your undead body full of 10,000 volts! Void shouted as his horns began to spark with both red and green Christmassy colored energy. Jack didn't speak, for he only panicked and screamed from the melting sensation that was chiseling away at his body. 1, 2, 10! Releasing a massive surge of both red and green currents, Void evaporated Jack's hands and sent the ghastly wintry demon flying backwards, all the way till it crashed against the oil tanker in a mighty clash. Taking a breath and loosening himself from the tree, Void absorbed the remaining energy back into his heart and leapt at the large fern. Landing to his feet, the Spark glared upon Jack, who was slowly levitating back up. His body was now more liquidy, melty, just the way Void wanted him to be. Turning his sights to the canister of oil behind, Void huffed and activated his arm blaster, knowing full well what he had to do to end it all. As Jack and Void locked eyes one last time, the beast opened its mouth and rushed towards the Spark in a last-ditch attempt to survive and kill its prey. The Void had already won. With one singular shot, the Spark blasted the oil tanker, causing it to burst into a fury of flames, taking the surrounding area along with Frost in its embered embrace. The last thing Void could see of the spirit were its eyes shrinking in fright, all before he faded to the mist with an eruption of flames. Shielding his eyes, Void looked away from the sight, listening in as the last of Jack's primal screaming dissipated into thin air, only leaving behind the blast imprint of flame and thrown-up cars and street debris. It was over and done. Keep the change, you filthy animal. Void gruffed out before retracting his arm cannon and reaching down to the ground to pick up his axe. The Spark was now tired, cold, and in need of a new cloak. But the important thing was that the small issue was dealt with. The snowy storm circle that was spiraling around began to fade, while the clouds above slowly started to return to normal. Snow continued to fall, but it was better than having to deal with a blizzard on the holidays of all things. This is what Void told himself as he took a long and comforting breath. Okay, note to self. Make sure you get the holiday shopping done next year early. Void told himself as he opened a portal and walked through, not wanting to deal with the law on the holiday's eve. What mattered was that people wouldn't freeze to death. Although this excursion would most likely leave a stain upon the Blue Bullet's image, it wouldn't matter in any way to the Spark. For now it was time to get some extra milk and head home.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Knock cried out in a drunken stupor as he nearly fell atop the kitchen countertop with eggnog in hand.
And Happy New Year.
It was Christmas morning. All of Void's friends, or rather now a family, was within the upper living room space of Knock's workshop, passing presents and having a jolly time. Sorry, y'all. He really likes his eggnog. Cod apologized as he pat Knock's shoulder with a nervous chuckle. He was like this last year, hun. There's no surprise there. Sarv returned with a smile as she and Tucker exchanged gifts. Everyone had been sitting around the Christmas tree. Void, Jida, and Pofnu had been positioned on a right side couch, while Tucker and Sarv were on a left side. Knock and Cot were seated in the kitchen side, while a gentle yellow morning light shimmered in through the window. It was a beautiful Christmas morning, Void thought. Alright, Freckles, I got one last gift for you. I hope you like it. The Spark mentioned to his burning-haired wife, who blinked and tilted her head with curiosity. With a smile, Void reached into his back pocket and pulled out the small pouch-like baggie with tender care. The story behind this one is well, actually, let's discuss it sometime later. Void expressed as Jida gently took and opened the bag, and then gasped. Oh my god. You actually... Reaching inside and pulling out the bracelet, Jida chuckled with a gasping breath while gazing upon its purple and white haze. Void, you didn't have to. You really... Before Jida could finish expressing her glee, everyone watched in sudden shock as the bracelet cracked down its side, and then split in half, breaking from the damage and hits Void had taken from fighting Frost. No! The Spark suddenly cried out in an anguished breath, watching on in dismay as the small piece of jewelry cracked to the floor. No. Void whispered again as his face furrowed into a saddened expression. Oh no. Oh, hey, it's okay. We can fix it. Jida assured as she began to pick up the pieces of split metal and amethyst stone. Or we could turn it into something else. Things can still be good, if not better broken, remember? Jida continued as she gave a worried smile towards the Spark. Void just simply slumped his shoulders and sighed, feeling as though he just ruined the mood. Not to mention, a good wad of cash had just sunk down the drain. Damn it. That wasn't supposed to happen. The Spark regretfully said, now biting the inside of his cheek. Hey, it's okay. Really. It's still beautiful. It's not like it's been all lost. We'll figure it out, Blue. Jida reassured as she pocketed the bracelet and placed a hand over the Spark's. Besides, you're not the only one who has one last gift. Raising an eyebrow to this, Void watched as Jida turned away from him and clapped her hands. In response to the sound, a small little robot rolled out from around the corner. With a computer head attached to a Roomba, the small device held a small smiling face on display, with a medium-sized purple fake wrapped gift atop it. The robot was named Jet, Mark 1 to be exact. It was Void and Jida's own creation. Stopping and leaning its boxy head down, Jet silently gestured for the Spark to take his gift. With caring hands, Void took the gift and set it in his lap. There was no wrapping to be seen. Rather, it was printed on to look as such, just being a box with a lid in truth. Glancing at Jida, Void could see what appeared to be a worried yet excited smile on display, causing his own mouth to curve up as well. What is this? He asked while gently taking hold of the lid and taking it off. Peering inside, Void found there to be a bunch of tinsel, reds and greens sprinkled with fake snow. Small candies littered the bottom, while something unexpected lay within the center of it all. Squinting his eyes, Void reached in and took hold of some kind of pen. Thermometer? Something small and long, donned in white plastic with a little blue casing near its end. What's this? Void asked as he brought the little stick up into the light. Some kind of pen or pencil? He continued before turning it around in his hands and seeing something peculiar. Within the pen, there was what looked to be a little indentation or clear plastic casing, and inside it were two markings, a set of red lines that went down side by side. Freckles, what is this thing? Void asked before turning it to face everyone else. As he did, everyone turned to see what the spark was showing off, and what he got was a mixture of reactions. Oh shit! Tucker cried with a baffled chuckle, while Sarv covered her mouth with a wide-eyed gasp. Wait a second, oh my god, are you serious right now? Kot cried out as Nog drunkenly looked over with a curious sight, unable to see properly through his stupor. Perking with a confused gaze, Void glanced between everyone, wondering what the deal was. If anything, he was growing worried. What is it? Jida, what is... Turning to his wife, Void found her smiling and blushing with a hard pink glow. Small tears were welded within her eyes as she proceeded to reach out and take hold of Void's hands. Jida, what am I holding right now? What's going on? The spark asked, leaving the musician to hang her head low with a small chuckle. Void, feel right here. Jida quietly said as she gently took the spark's left hand and placed it over her stomach. The spark, feeling ever confused, wasn't sure on what to make of this, until suddenly, he sensed something. It was a small, faint source of energy that felt as though to call at his soul, something he hadn't felt in years. It was familiar, yet similar to his own. A gentle wave of peace and a sense of enlightenment. The spark's veins beneath his skin then gently began to glow, going from dim blues to a more purplish haze, as his soul connected with another's. Not Jida's, someone else's entirely. Freckles, what is... Looking up, Jida's smile grew wider while she blinked away the tears of joy. Raising her left hand up, she placed it on the side of Void's cheek, then her other over his hand below. Taking a breath, Jida sat up straight and revealed the big news. Void, I'm pregnant. As those three words gently settled themselves upon the spark, Void's curious expression slowly morphed into that of a stunned and bewildered face. The darkness in his oval eyes slowly morphed to life with a lovely blue, as his jaw began to ever so gently hang low. Upon seeing this, Jida began to giggle, while the spark's mouth then slowly curved into that of a shocked smile. You're not joking, right? Are you actually? Void couldn't finish speaking his words, as the tiny sense of life continued to pulsate against his palm. It was a spark's essence, something he hadn't had contact with ever since the Purge. It was soft, gentle, innocent, and alive. Yeah, I am. I found out last week, Jida revealed before taking both of the spark's hands back into her own. We're gonna be parents, Blue. Jida happily expressed as Void shook his head with continuous shock and joy. He couldn't believe it. And yet, somehow, Void could sense the life of his own blood within. As one would say, it was a Christmas miracle. I'm gonna be a dad? Void gasped out before repeating it again in a more realized tone. I'm gonna be a dad! Void cheered as both him and Jida stood to their feet and began to dance around, hand in hand, arm around arm, as they both laughed and cried to the news. You're gonna what? Nox shouted before falling over in his drunken state. Leaping off the couch as well, Pofnu began to stand on her hind legs and attempt to dance with her owners, all while everyone else smiled and laughed in joy to Jida's amazing news. I'm gonna be a dad! You're gonna be a mom! Void continued, shouting with holiday cheer. That wasn't until the two of them stopped and locked eyes, as a new thought then dawned in the Void's head. A thought that made his heart both explode in warmth and a sense of anxiety. A good anxiety, in truth. The sparks. The sparks are gonna live on. Void quietly stated with tears welling in his eyes. My species, my people, though. I won't be the only one. Void choked out as he and Jida pressed foreheads. I won't be the only one. Oh, Jida! Void cried with happy tears as he embraced his wife, who quickly hugged back, both crying and happy in a state of joy. As the snow continued to fall, everyone inside the workshop embraced the two soon-to-be parents, for a new sense of hope was felt through it all. Not only was the day one of joy and cheer, it had also become that of a starting point for an interesting future. Things had changed quickly within the 5 years of Void and Jida's life. There were ups and downs, but they wouldn't have had it any other way. For a new journey was soon to await them. The journey of parenthood and raising the next spark. The first one to possibly be born in over a decade. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this little Christmas special I wrote. I kind of wanted to make something for the holidays, as well as make some kind of prologue to what Lineage will be about. So I'm not going to waste too much time here and just say thank you for listening to this, as well as my other projects in the past. I had a lot of friends work on this. My good friend and sister, Nat, or Nerdy the Artist, you can follow her on Instagram or whatever there. She did Jack. She did a fantastic job. I'm so proud of her for that. You know, she wants to be a voice actor, so if you could show her some love. You can also check out Wall Joint and my friend Ollie. They're the ones who helped work on the little stupid Christmas song you hear in Fofit's shop. And yeah, no, just go check their channels out. It would mean a lot to them. Well, Nat doesn't have a channel, but check it. You know, just whatever. Just show them some love in the comments or whatever, because this was a lot of fun. And yeah, just have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, because I'm taking my break. For real this time. I'm not gonna do anything till 2024, because Lord knows I'm gonna need all the time I have, so yeah. See you around. But before I go, here are 2 bloopers in terms of the recording session. So yeah. Mary...
He'll climb a tree, so nimble is he.